Ho, 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 and welcome to Weird Heat. I'm Brian Altano, and this is Max Scoville, and this is a Christmas spectacular disaster.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas indeed. We've done a lot of episodes of this show this year, and we're quite proud of them. Recently, we did Thanksgiving, so I guess it sort of meant that we had to do Christmas. I don't think we'll be doing every holiday. But
I think we should do every holiday. I think these are...
We skipped Halloween.
Yeah, that's true.
How the fuck did we skip Halloween?
I don't know how we skipped Halloween. I don't know. We were like probably doing like procrastination or trying to bank shoot stuff or
that's
whatever.
True.
But yeah, Christmas.
When we talked about Thanksgiving, you didn't like Thanksgiving.
I love Christmas.
But you love Christmas.
I'm fucking bonkers for Christmas.
Me too. It's a great one.
I think it's kind of the king of the holidays in a lot of ways.
Yep.
I think Halloween is a cool time, but it doesn't count as a holiday because you still have to like... You can't be like, sorry, I can't be there. It's Halloween because people are like, you're fired.
Yeah.
But so Christmas, you're like, I'm not going to be there. It's Christmas. And everyone's like, oh, that's a good point. It is Christmas.
So for reference, we're in my one-bedroom apartment right now. I'm about a week or two from moving out of it into a slightly bigger one. This apartment is a small apartment, and this year I was like, we need to get an 8-foot tall Christmas tree.
That's a big-ass Christmas tree.
It's a big fucking... It's one of those Christmas trees where we went to get it, and there were like 6 other people being like, where'd you get that Christmas tree? And I was like, do you understand how trees work? It doesn't just have like 5 brothers waiting for it. And so I like Christmas. This is illustrative of that. There's a lot of things that I do every year at Christmas. A couple years ago, we started a tradition where I bought all these Star Wars toys and I made them into ornaments and I hung them all over my tree. And I try to make sure every year we get a big tree. And every year I also get the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar. I open up one every single day.
I didn't get an Advent Calendar this year.
I know it's important to do that, right? And then we get presents, we put them underneath. Like I'm really into this holiday.
It's a fun one. I think people, I don't know, it rubs some people the wrong way. A lot of people will be like, it's the fucking holidays. And I'm one of those people where I get like weird and depressed, but Christmas is kind of the thing that keeps me going.
Yeah.
I had this thing a couple years ago where I had this weird like Christmas epiphany where I realized that like I really love Christmas and it really like it's a thing that I need to like champion and celebrate and really just enjoy because I used to love it as a kid. It was my fucking favorite thing in the world. And then I don't know, like as you get older, you get to be like pessimistic and shitty. And I was like, no, I should really. I like dug into the history of Christmas and I read all this shit about how like it used to be this crazy like pagan holiday where my favorite like ancient Christmas tradition, and this is probably like technically like Yule or Saturnalia or some shit, but like in early olden days England, I always think of like that movie The Witch with this, where it's like people would all get together and like Christmas for them was like, we are going to burn the biggest log we can find.
Yep.
Because if we don't, we will freeze to death. And we're going to have a feast because we might not live through February. We're going to make the fucking best of this.
And it was like freeze-dried oxtails and acorns.
They would put all these apples under the stairs and they'd make like apple cider. And my favorite one is people would go out like on Christmas Day and they would go out in like the fucking apple orchard and just fire a gun in the air and all the robins would take off and all the birds would fly away. And they'd be like, yes, be gone, evil spirits. And it was like, there's this whole like thing about just like making a bunch of noise and banging bells and like just fucking trying to light shit up because you're like and you kind of get this with Game of Thrones where like winter is coming, but that was like there was a point in time where like you couldn't go outside because you would die of exposure and or be eaten by wolves.
Yeah. And
so like Christmas is sort of like it's kind of like the winter solstice was like the real big sort of pagan celebration, which I think is on like the 21st or something, but like 25th is close enough. And so, of course, Christianity comes in. They're like, how do we like kind of shoehorn baby Jesus in there? And it still like has this, I feel like the whole nativity thing about like being surrounded by farm animals has this like vaguely kind of like, there's this kind of totemic element there where you're like, oh, yes, the Christmas donkey is here. And you're like, it's kind of weird.
Well, like I think the most like sort of indicative symbolism I can say about the nativity scene is that my mom used to set one up every single year. And the backdrop to it was this thing we made. My brother and I went to like pottery class after school, like in elementary school. And this is the pottery class where I think I talked about this in the show before, but the year Batman Returns came out, I was like, I'm going to make a coil version of Batman. And to do that, you have to build small coils and build up the top, and my coils kept getting fatter and fatter, and by the end I was like, fuck it, it's Danny DeVito's Penguin. So back at my parents' house in New Jersey, there's this like coin bank ceramic. I'll take a picture of it next time I'm home. It's this ceramic Danny DeVito penguin, and it's just terrifying. But while we were there, we made a backdrop for a nativity scene using stars and like this half dome that we cooked. And my mom, was Italian, and so she's really into like the traditional old Jesus side of Christmas, right? Like that's a big thing. And she would always put out the nativity scene, and baby Jesus would always be there. And my brothers and I invariably were big action figure kids growing up, and we would take Jesus out and we would swap in like He-Man or Lion-O or something like that. And we would always be like, how long before she notices? And so like in the month leading up to Christmas, a specific part of her job was going into the dining room and going, who did this?
Yeah.
And pulling, and she'd be like, where's Jesus? And
I
we'd
think
be like, we hit him.
my mom had that problem too. I mean, there's obviously for some people that's straight up blasphemy.
Yeah.
I think that as far as like getting silly goes, in conjunction with Christianity, like Christmas, you get a fair amount of leeway because it is still sort of a celebration. And there's also like a shit ton of magics and stuff happening.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a bunch of like wizards show up from the desert bringing a bunch of like like items. Like fucking
and even if
myrrh.
if you meet in the middle on that, concurrently with that entire plan is like this fucking ancient man comes from the North Pole.
Oh yeah,
on
and
his,
then
like,
Santa
car
Claus
full
is
of
a
horses.
whole other thing. Who's like loosely inspired by Odin.
So to get the negative shit out of the way real quick, I will say that Christmas at its worst takes some of the worst elements of Thanksgiving and it marries them to the worst elements of Black Friday and takes Black Friday and instead of making this like this fucking personal gamut through selfishness, it turns it into a competition for others. And then the gift buying culture becomes like sick and ridiculous. And it's something that I've spent the last like 10 years trying to move away from with my family and being like, let's buy each other gift cards and experiences. Let's all go out to dinner together, stuff like that.
That's the thing that I probably would have hated. So this is funny, actually. One of my favorite Christmas things, period, is there's this troupe. I don't know how you describe this. It's like a variety show that's sort of rooted in history. It's called the Christmas Revels, and it was founded by this dude named Alexander Langstaff back in the 70s. And he was one of those kind of like intellectual proto hippies. And I think he was like loosely. This was in like Cambridge, Massachusetts, so he's probably like hanging out with some fucking scarf wearing Harvard people. But basically, it's sort of being like, what would a Christmas variety show be like 300 years ago?
Right.
And they put this shit on, and they do this every year. It's become almost like sort of like a Renaissance fair, Dickens fair kind of thing. But it's like it's a whole performance thing, and there's kids singing and ringing bells, and it's all like basically Christmas stuff from different time periods. So it's sort of like a history lesson, but with a performative aspect. It's pretty fucking weird. You can find it on Spotify. I fucking love it. And some of it's kind of churchy, and some of it's like just sort of out there. But like I got taken to see this when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And when you're a kid, you're like, a Christmas present is a toy. You unwrap it. The Christmas present was from like one of my mom's friends who was like, we got tickets to this thing. We'll take you. And I remember being like, do I get a present? I don't even remember what friend this was. It was like basically like an aunt for me. But I was like, do we get a present? My mom was like, that was the present. We got to go see this thing. And I was like, at the time, I was like really disappointed by it. And then I think we also got like a fucking cassette of this thing that my mom would always put on around Christmas time. Yeah. And that's actually kind of what wormed into my brain when I was sort of starting to kind of find my own like Christmas time shit to put on.
Right.
And I was like, this is a part from my childhood Christmas that I do want to keep around. Going to church on Christmas Eve, I could take it or leave it. But this I got to keep. And my wife now is like, what the fuck are you listening to? And it's like, weird like pagan pan flute shit.
But it's
like,
great.
It
carries with it, right?
And it's funny how that experience did in fact sort of like plant this seed that has become like part of like Christmas for me. And I'm like definitely much less about like gift giving and materialism. But when I was a kid, that meant new toys.
Yeah.
Like when you're a kid, I think the materialism is like, it's the best part.
It is. And it's like we had this running joke. So I have 2 brothers, and we would go meet up with our cousins and our aunts and uncles every year on Christmas. And the way we did Christmas on the East Coast was there were like 3 core families, my family and then like our 2 sets of cousins. And we would alternate between their houses every single year. And so some years it would be at our house, which was awesome because we could, you just basically wake up and be like, Christmas is here already. Other years it'd be at my uncles and aunts or my other uncles and aunts. But every single year we would all get presents for pretty much everybody, but the kids got the most.
Yeah.
And we would sit around, and this running joke started where as we opened up the presents, someone would be like, "Oh, I wonder what I got," and one of the uncles would be like, "Clothes," and someone else would be like, "More clothes." So they just started yelling more clothes, but since most of them speak like broken English, it'd be like, "More clothes, more clothes, more clothes." So we would be opening up presents, and there'd be these old men screaming more clothes. And then the older we got, the more we were like, "Oh, I don't want toys. I want clothes, or I want cologne, or I want a gift card to something like that." And so like it was always weird watching that transition happen. And I love that element of gift culture. There's been a couple years in the last 7 years where I flew to the East Coast and like landed, and on Christmas Eve morning, like got in the car and angrily packed through New Jersey Turnpike traffic and went to Target and Best Buy and bought a bunch of trash for people that they didn't want and didn't need. And that's like such a frustrating, gross experience. And it's this thing that really like saps all the last bits of joy out of that. So it's something I do fight for more and more every year is to make gifts more experiential or at least to get all my shit done early on.
I think there's and this is like a pretty fucking like, I don't know, crappy statement at face value, but I think like a perfunctory gift is worse than no gift.
Yeah.
You know, to have someone give you something that was just like, "Oh, that's what you think of me," or like, "That's the best you got." And it's not like you don't like the gift. It's more that like, "Oh, I would have been fine if you just, you know, wish me Merry Christmas."
Exactly.
You know? Like when someone gets you something that is just like so off base that you're like, "Oh, well, now I feel obligated to keep this thing or to do something with it, but I don't really want it."
Yeah.
And it's like, I would have been fine if we just, I don't know, we could have given me a candy cane. It would have been fine. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we had somebody, and you know, bless their souls, people don't know what to do. But right before we had a kid, somebody sent us like this 4 foot by 5 foot framed canvas print of something, and we were just like,
That's like an imposition.
Yeah, it was like, thank you. I don't know. Like, and then we found out like returning it or exchanging it was this massive hassle.
Yeah.
So we just had this like this huge thing in our apartment.
And you're like, you feel bad because they gave you this thing.
And my wife's like, she's such a sweetheart, but she was like, she's not like me where she can just bluntly be like, "Oh man, we can't use this." She was just like, "Oh,
gift giving is hard.
It's really hard.
Gift giving is really hard."
Yeah.
My wife is hilarious because she's really good at giving gifts, but she's fucking terrible at keeping secrets. And we have gotten this like she almost outdoes herself. Like the quality of the gifts is like pretty on par across our relationship, but the crappiness with which she reveals them is almost like increasingly comical. Where, God, there was one year where like she ordered this. She got me a Soda Stream and a blender, and I can't remember which one it was, but like she'd said something where I just guessed like, are you getting me a blender? Mm-hmm. Like she was like, you really could use a new blender. I wonder, and then sort of trailed off, and I was like, are you like hinting at this? Like, you can just say nothing and I won't guess anything. And then this package shows up and it's from Amazon, and she's like, "Well, you might as well open it because you already know that it's a blender." And then I open it and it's a Soda Stream, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And she's like, "God damn it, shit." And there's another time where she's just absentmindedly was like, "Which of your friends have PS3s?" And I'm like, "Did you get me a PS3?" And she just goes like deer in headlights. And I was just like, and they're like really good presents.
Yeah,
she's like, really, yeah. And you know, it's just like, I was like, did you do that? And she's like,
It's so fun.
She gets like super depressed about it too, and it's just funny for me. And I'm like, that's really sweet. Like you didn't.
I have a lot of that in me as well, but I do the thing where it's like 4 days before Christmas, and I'm just like, "How about I just give you your gift now? You're really gonna like it. You should have your gift right now." And she's like, "No, it's Christmas. Is Christmas."
So you're that one.
Yeah, I'm that one where I'm just like, it's also it feels like having a bomb in the apartment where I'm like,
you're
afraid
you're gonna
find
spoil
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gift giving thing is really weird. We when we were kids, and like I will feel bad about this until I'm dead. But I woke up. We used to wake up at the fucking crack of dawn on Christmas morning. I'm a morning person anyway, but I would drag my brothers out of bed.
Oh, dude, that was the first sign of adulthood is when I didn't wake up at the ass crack of dawn.
Yeah,
like that was like, oh wow, I'm a teenager. I slept until 10 on Christmas.
On Christmas, it feels crazy, right?
Yeah.
Or you're hungover. Yeah. I woke up one year on Christmas, and I have two younger brothers. I've talked about them before. I'm very close with both of them. I love them. I woke up on Christmas morning, and I ran downstairs, and I was like, Santa came, and I got my brothers, and I was like, you know what we should do we should let mom and dad sleep because they've had a hard year. They work their asses off. Let's open all the presents.
Oh, no.
And then when they come down, they'll see us playing with the toys. They'll be really happy that we didn't wake them up. And I didn't know the big ruse about the way the presents got there. If you're young and a believer, I won't get into the deets, but we basically opened up all the presents, and my mom and dad, after a month of getting all that stuff together, came downstairs and just saw us surrounded by torn open gift wrap, and my mom just burst into tears.
Oh.
And I was like, "What's wrong, Mom?" And she's like watching you guys open up the presents is the best part.
Yeah.
We were like, "No, the presents are the best part." And she was like, "No, we like to see the joy of the surprise that you get from opening up those gifts." And we were like, "Oh, why?" And then a couple years later, I was like, "Oh, fuck."
Did you guys do stockings?
Yeah.
Did you do like stockings, then breakfast, then presents?
No, the stockings were always sort of an afterthought, and they always had like candy and stuff in them. There was only one year, and I've told the story on so many video game shows, but all I wanted for Christmas was a Nintendo Game Boy. It was the year it came out, and
You don't need to say Nintendo Game Boy.
Exactly.
It's a game man at this point. It's been around for 35 years.
And I opened up all my gifts. It wasn't there, and my mom. There's 3 stockings on the wall, and my brothers are just like long and droopy, like all stockings look, and they have like this M&M candy cane sticking out of it, and mine just looks like a fucking snake that ate a cinder block. It's just got this fat rectangle in it, and I was like, "What's that?" And I tear it open, and the indentation of that Game Boy like left a mark on that thing for years.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, the stockings were, and then breakfast was always weird on Christmas morning because it was like you would like have like hot chocolate and candy, and like maybe your mom would cook
I'm
something.
so excited. My mom's coming down for Christmas this year, and like she has all these like European Christmas delicacies that she brings in, and there's shit that I like grew up with that I'm like, yeah, this thing, and then I'm like, I met people and I'm like, oh no, this is not normal. Okay. Panettone, you guys do that?
Yes, all the time.
Anyone who shit talks fruitcake is because they've had fucking garbage fruitcake that came in a tin and is like a brick. Panettone is like a fucking light and fluffy Italian fruitcake.
It's so weird to explain
Like you.
because thank you. It I used to be more like a fruitcake. It's like a foot tall bright red or gold box.
Looks like a giant muffin.
Yeah, or like an anvil.
Yeah, that comes in like a funny, like a
The box is fucking ridiculous.
It comes in like a hat box.
It opens weird, and it's got like shoestrings, and you open it, and then it
fucking
flaps
love those
open.
things.
It looks like a hat box, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's just like this tall, not spongy, but just sort of very airy.
Yeah, it looks like a big muffin. It's
Yeah.
got like paper around the bottom, and it puffs up at the top, and it's got like fucking dried fruits and raisins and stuff in it. And if that sounds gross, give it a shot sometime. Weirdly enough, they sell those a lot at like TJ Maxx.
Yeah.
Like I found you can go to like shitty discount stores and they have them. So
Yep.
if you're looking for a new Christmas treat, I recommend that.
No, my wife always laughs because like my mom a couple years ago was just like, "Oh, I got you all personal panettones." My brother was like, "We don't need personal panettone. Like, what the fuck is going on?"
Yeah, that's
But we
like
had so many in our house.
I'm like so. That's one of those things. Like if they were like, "Hey, you have to die. What do you want to eat for the last meal?" I'd be like 5 panettones. Like, give me that. We also would get like my mom was like not big on German food, but like German Christmas desserts, all about it. You ever have a Stollen?
no.
Stollen's like a rum cake. That's more like a traditional fruit cake, but it's like a powdered sugar kind of like hard cake that usually has like marzipan inside.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it like it's kind of weird if you eat it cold, but if you heat it up in the toaster oven, all the powdered sugar on top like crystallizes.
Yep.
And it's like super fun. It's like a really good coffee cake. Pfeffernussen are those little
Yes.
cookies.
Those are
fucking
Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Those are really good. What like eating in general on Christmas is really weird because so in Italian culture, you treat that night like it's like a Good Friday or a Friday, so you don't historically eat meat, and that's where like I've always heard about people always ask me as an Italian, they're like, "Oh, do you guys do the Feast of the Seven Fishes?" And I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" Because we didn't call it that growing up, but we mostly do have fish on Christmas Eve, but we do this other thing where I'm drawing a blank of the name, but they would my aunts and my grandmothers and and my mom and all the other moms would get together in the kitchen and they would make these things called frittella, which I don't know if that was a regional thing, but it's effectively personal calzones. And you roll the dough out, and they have this big wooden box that's it looks like a diorama, like it's built up walls on 3 sides. And you put all this like dusty ass flour in there, and you roll this dough out, and you make them into these like small little pancakes. And inside you put like cold blocks of mozzarella cheese and fresh San Marzano tomatoes. And you can also add ham or spinach. And one year I woke up drunk and I made like bacon, egg, and cheese ones that were awful. And so you put them all in these pockets and then you deep fry them.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and so everybody sits around on Christmas Eve eating like 6 or 7 these gigantic deep fried things and then just like drinking out wine and beer. And the caloric count, you can't even think about it because it's just fucking ridiculous.
No, don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
But it's like, and it's an incredibly stressful thing to make because they're deep fried, so you can't pre-make them. They're almost like savory zeppelis. And you have to make them in hot oil in a packed kitchen with a bunch of people wearing Christmas clothes and everyone's running around and
sounds
like
dangerous.
And it's incredibly dangerous and it gets very hot and stinky. And so it's just a weird fucking thing. And then on Christmas Day, everyone's like, "What do we eat?" And so one year, I don't know what I was.
Oh God, yes.
One year,
the story
my dad was like, "What should we eat? What should we eat for Christmas?" And I was like 50 pounds heavier, and I walked in with just like a full beard, and I was like, "I suggest that this year for Christmas we go down to the butcher shop and we get ourselves a nice Christmas goose." And he was like, "What?" And me and my brothers were like, "Yes, a Christmas goose."
I feel like this is why we're best friends. Like this is the same kind of stupid shit that I would like. You heard it in like a fucking Nicktoon or something, and you're like, Christmas goose, that's pretty funny. That's a mean animal. Let's eat one.
And you're just kind of in this like weird drunken malaise for like 3 days straight, where you're just like, "Oh, I'll have wine at 11 a.m. I'll put Stoli in my," like people have eggnog and like there's just like booze makes its way into everything.
Great, yeah.
And so my dad goes to the store and he gets this fucking giant dilapidated bird. And the thing is growing up in New Jersey, the only goose you see are Canadian geese, which once or twice a year, every year, they're like, "Hey, PSA, if you see them, kill them. Just hit them with your car, shoot them with your gun. There's too many of them, and they're ornery and shitty."
All they do is fucking fertilize kids' soccer fields and then bite kids.
They're awful, and like so that's my only like connection with geese was Canadian geese that are just like they just shit and piss and yell at everyone.
I mean, that's what barnyard geese do. They just are like less colorful and I would say even meaner.
So we got a Canadian. No, it wasn't a Canadian. It was a Christmas
regular
goose.
Christmas
and I don't
goose.
know, like, and it's just like he's got his fucking neck out and his dead head on the table.
Yeah, it's weird. They cut off with like chickens and turkeys and stuff. They whack the head off way sooner, I guess. But with a Christmas goose, they've got that fucking neck.
Yeah, he looked like when fucking Daffy Duck is like digging underground or some shit, and he's like burrowing in a tunnel. And so it was like $95, and it was just like really, really dry and gamey, and there was enough meat for like 2 people on it, and we were just sitting there like just like gnawing at these bones, and my dad was like eating this great goose meat, and he's like, "This is fucking awful. Why did you tell me to get a goose?" And we were just like drunkenly at the table being like, "Ah, yes, a Christmas goose."
I love that so much. It's so fucking dumb. Do you guys fuck with marzipan much?
Yeah. That was my mom was really into that.
Yeah, my mom would always get like for early on marzipan is like it's like almond candy for anyone listening.
It's Sculpey you can eat.
It's an acquired taste, and you can get it like pre-made in like little little funny shapes, and they're kind of and it's usually good. And then you can make it from scratch.
Yeah.
Or buy like sort of pre-made stuff and then start sculpting things with it.
If you're watching your most probably mainstream exposure to it is they sell it like these little weird brown or red boxes that have fruits made out of them, and it's just like an apple, a pear, an orange, and they're all dusted with different colors.
And none
but
of them
they all
taste like the fruit.
Yeah, they all taste just
like
like
almonds.
They just taste like weird, very sugary almond paste.
I used to hate that stuff, and then something switched in my brain or my taste buds or whatever, where I'm just like, yeah, this is a great time. I like it. I remember going to like a German specialty food store that my mom was going to for some fancy bullshit she needed for Christmas cooking, and they had like the crazy lineup of marzipan everything, and one image is like burned into my brain, and I don't know what the fuck the story is here. I really want to track one of these down. It was like they'll make little farm animals about marzipan. They make like like mushrooms are a big one because they'll do like like a Christmas chocolate log or whatever, and you're like, oh, let's eat fucking healthy things, but it's made out of almonds and sugar. They had one that was a little boy, and he was like bent over like the fucking Coppertone girl with his fucking ass hanging out. And there was a gold coin in his butt cheeks. And I still don't know what's going on with that. Like, I do not know the backstory to that. And it was like one of those things when you see when you're a kid and you're like, someday I hope this makes sense to me. And I just keep going. And I haven't Googled it. I keep meaning to look that up and be like, yeah, why do the Dutch put coins in the candy boy's ass? Like, I don't know what that is. Yeah, like I love that. Like I totally want to.
It's so great. There's also all the weird like movie traditions. Like there's A Christmas Story, which is a movie that I to this day have never seen straight through.
Really?
But I have seen in its entirety thousands of times.
Okay.
So like I've never sat down start to finish and watched A Christmas Story, but it's on for like 12 hours straight.
What channel had that?
I think it was like NBC or CBS or something
So
like that.
I somehow completely missed that. Like it wasn't part of my mom's like cultural repertoire growing up. And I don't know. I just never stumbled upon it. Like it never clicked. And I got into that because they started making action figures of it.
Yeah.
Like in the early 2000s. And I was like, well, this is clearly a blind spot in my cultural, like my pop culture awareness or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like the leg lamp and all that weird shit.
So there's all these scenes in that movie that I know top to bottom, but then every single year there's a scene that I've only seen maybe once or never.
I think they remastered it or put in like I think they did like a Star Wars special
where they added new shit.
Yeah,
because there's that scene where like they go to the mall and he goes down the slide and it's terrifying. And I always forget that scene's in that movie, but I remember everything else about him wearing the coat and the dogs wrecking the house and the lamp and him cursing. And
the dogs are pretty funny, you
know. And like the Ovaltine thing was weird because we had no point of reference for that, but my dad did because my dad grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, and like that was right in the 60s, 70s. That was the heart of sort of processed foods really hitting their culture in America. And his dad was a truck driver and his mom was like kind of, she worked a lot. So she would come home and she would chuck a frozen pot roast in the oven and then like mix up a cup of Ovaltine and give it to him. And so I didn't have point of reference for that because we drank fucking Nestle Quick.
When you were a kid, did you think that movie was supposed to be set in present day and they were just horribly poor?
No. So what fucked me up about that movie, and to this day, that movie was made when? It was like made in like the 80s or something, right?
So that's my entire thing with anything, any period piece from when I was being brought up. Like, so it was, let's see, Life with Louie, The Wonder Years, A Christmas Story were all things that when I first sort of discovered them, I was like not educated enough to know what time period it was supposed to be and had no frame of reference. And I was just like, these guys are all horribly dressed and their lives are sad and they don't have a good TV,
Yeah.
But like that movie, like is Christmas Story supposed to be 60s or like?
I think so I thought that movie came out like in the 60s,
right? And
it didn't. It was in theaters in like the fucking 80s.
Okay, so it was like a Happy Days scenario.
Yeah, and that fucked me up as a kid because as a kid I was like, this is a classic. And it's like, no, this movie is like 3 years old.
Yeah, that's so weird. That's so confusing.
It's so confusing. Yeah, so that's one of those movies that's just always on in the background. And like, you're going in and out of the kitchen and the living room and you're like making drinks and you're opening presents and you kind of look up every now and then. You're like, aha, you'll shoot your eye out. And then you keep watching it. But I've never been like, let's sit down and watch this movie from start to finish. Like the idea of going to a theater and watching that movie.
I was under the impression that was a TV movie.
Yeah.
And apparently it wasn't. It was a theatrical movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that's one of those things I feel like we gotta bug our pal Jared Petty about the complete history of that movie because I don't know where that came from. But like, actually, I feel like I've talked to him about that before. I don't know, like that. What are your other like Christmas movie traditions?
Home Alone, obviously,
Home Alone's
all
a good
the time. That's one. I'm not going to get into the Die Hard debate because it's
so here's the thing. Here's the thing. People who are like, Die Hard's the best Christmas movie. That's basically just wearing a giant sandwich board sign that says, I'm unfamiliar with the works of Shane Black.
Yeah.
Because if you want like an off-color Christmas movie that's also full of action violence, well, there's, I believe, 2, maybe 3 Lethal Weapon movies that are at Christmas. There's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. There's The Long Kiss Goodnight. There's Iron Man 3.
Yep.
The Predator was weirdly, that was at like Halloween.
And speaking of giant sandwich boards that piss a lot of people off, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going for there.
It's definitely it's one of those debates we have to hear all the time now. And to me, it is the December version of Is Hot Dog a Sandwich? And you're like, this is an uninteresting conversation all year. I don't care.
Die Hard's a great movie. It's a great anytime
any
movie.
excuse you need to watch.
Just watch Die Hard. It's
it.
fine. It's cool. But also watch The Long Kiss Goodnight. Is a super underrated Christmas movie. It's great. I love that film. I think one of the fucking Beverly Hills Cop movies is at Christmas. I don't even know.
I mean, to me, like Batman Returns is a
Batman
Christmas
Returns
movie.
is a solid one.
That's a really good one. I like that a lot. But no, Home Alone 1 and 2 are always the ones that come on in my periphery because those are just really wonderful.
I talked about this last time, but like Lord of the Rings has become a Christmas thing for me.
Yeah, we started the Star Wars trilogy became a thing for us.
I think Disney kind of started that too, where they just started putting out Christmas movies around or Star Wars movies around Christmas. It's really nice. There's something about that like level of like okay, Christmas is already a pretty weird, magical, detached time of year. Now, what if you were in space or on Middle Earth or whatever?
I think we're recording this right now in 2018, and we got a Star Wars movie in May that kind of came and went, and my cycle feels off right now, that it's like December and we're not like...
It's probably why I had a kid there.
Exactly. That we're not like getting ready to go see a new Star Wars movie next week, but we will be doing that this time next year. So it's like...
weirdly enough, we're totally conditioned to be like, yes, Transformers. That's Transformers and Aquaman both seem like they should be summer movies.
Yeah.
But we're getting them in December, so go figure.
It's very odd.
I don't know.
But I don't know. Like, I think it's like it's cool, and this is what we said with the Thanksgiving one too. It's really cool to get a little older and start to carve out your own traditions and start to say like, well, this is what I'm taking, this is what I'm keeping. Like, I'm not going to keep the Fritella thing going, although I'd like to. I kind of want to like take the basic idea of that recipe, which, by the way, I can't find anywhere. Like, I looked online, and it's one of those things where I think it's like my mom's small fisherman town in Italy with its own weird dialect, had its own, sort of diagonal path through food culture on Christmas Eve, and they made this thing that they willed into existence that I can't really find anywhere, and even the ones I see online are like different than the ones they make. So it'd be cool to try that. Like, I'm staying here for Christmas this year in California, which we didn't really talk about, is again a weird place to be.
That's why Shane Black's Christmas movies are all fucked up, because it's like there should be snow and magic during Christmas time.
You and I were in LA for the Game Awards, and we were staying in this hotel called the Indigo, and their lobby had this like massive 15-foot real Christmas tree that just like smelled amazing, and they were playing Christmas music down there, and there were presents, and there was a couple and it was cold and rainy out. And we were bundled up, and there was a moment there where like you could trick your brain.
Almost got it. It's so close.
Yeah.
We had a weird thing the other day where it was raining in San Francisco, and it rained like on the street for a second and then cleared up, and there was like construction going on, and there were all these little patches of like dirt and sand on the side of the road, and I stepped on one, and I was like, it gave me that flashback of like fucking city slush in the wintertime when the snowplows have been going around putting sand everywhere, and I was just like, I don't miss that. But for a second, I missed that.
Yeah, right? But that's the thing that like, was so like, people was like, oh, New York City, when the snow comes down, it's beautiful. And I was like, yes, until the second it hits the street. And then it creates these like cavernous moats on every corner that you have to learn to jump 6 feet over in Timberlands. Like, it's this whole adventure. But no, I genuinely, deeply, truly love Christmas. This is our first one with like a baby, so it's going to be fun because we're going to open up presents. And then like, we're a few years away from like being like, oh yeah, Santa came, and like, oh, there's a noise on the roof. It's a fucking animal.
You could just lie to your kids about weird pagan nonsense.
Yeah, you're like, oh, these elves made this phone out of wood.
No, I think that's what's cool about Christmas, is it's sort of like you get to really it's a thing. It's fun for kids, and I think it's fun for adults. And there's some fucking grinchy teenagers out there, but it's really fun to kind of cherry pick the stuff you like and then kind of mold it into your own traditions.
Yeah,
and same
make
way
it
with
yours.
Same way with Thanksgiving, but there's like an even weirder style guide, and you can have way more fun with it.
Completely agree.
Do like bizarre, funny shit. So
yeah, I mean, we always one of our friends is Scott Bromley. Scott Bromley goes to a graveyard on Christmas Eve,
they go to his grandma's house or grandma's grave, and everyone just gets shithouse drunk first, and they go and they pour vodka and glitter and ribbons on the grave because she was like a party grandma or whatever.
Yeah, and
I went along with that one year.
They played Kesha and
crazy.
shit like that.
It was awesome. It was like super bizarre. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, so do what you want.
Yeah,
have fun. Go wreck a grave.
Hell yeah, do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a Christmas episode.
That was our Christmas spectacular. Thank you so much for listening to us this year. I think we have one more episode for 2018, and then we'll keep the party going next year.
Yeah.
We love making the show, so check it out. Go to weirdheat.com and support the show. Buy some merchandise. We have a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah, if you get like a gift card or whatever from your grandma, or if you know somebody else who likes this show and they want a shirt or whatever, you can get those. Weirdheat.com.
Yep.
If you want to support the show, patreon.com/weirdheat. If you want to find us on Twitter, I'm Max Scoville. He's Agent Bizzle. Yep. We're both on Instagram. Just under our real names.
If you probably caught on by now, but for every episode I make a new song, and we put those songs on Spotify. There's a playlist there called Under Weird Heat, and so I think it'll be 25 new songs I put out this year. So thank you to the audience for giving us this platform to allow me to do that. So go check those out. They're also on iTunes, Apple Music, everything.
Yeah, and like, share, subscribe. But more importantly, I hope everyone has a holly jolly Christmas, but also, healthy and sane and all that, and everything goes okay.
Yeah, be cool.
And if you're having a rough time, hang in there because it'll be a new year soon, and then the sun will come out and the snow will melt and the birds will go away, presumably.
Yeah, they go to Florida, right?
Because of microplastics or
And
whatever.
attack people.
Yeah, the birds all go to Florida. And what?
Yeah, that's what they do. Every spring, the birds go to Florida. Just attack people.
I'm getting you a Zoo Book subscription for your Christmas
would love
time.
nothing more. I'll see you soon, Ranger Rick.
All right, that's a different magazine.
Have a good night and Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Watch out for the Floridian birds.
The Floridian birds. Good night.